Hello everybody! So today on Divorce Day, you've already heard from Mel Murphy speak to you about all the emotions linked to a separation or a divorce. And you also heard from Sandrine Mercier, who spoke to you about all the overthinking that arises from it. So now it's my turn to speak to you about all the fears that are associated to separation and divorce and how those impact the professional sphere. Divorce and separation is a very difficult personal, emotional ordeal. But did you know that it also generates deep fears that not only affect someone's personal life, but also employees' careers and aspirations? So as Sandrine Mercier explained previously in her talk, the mental burden of separation is huge, whether it is before, during, or after a separation. Add to that a variety of fears, and it can truly, truly paralyze you. So indeed, employees going through separation or divorce face fears that can have direct repercussions on their work. Fear of losing financial security, fear of the impact that this will have on their career, or fear of being judged by their colleagues. So how can companies identify these fears and intervene effectively to support their employees and preserve their well-being at work? I will now describe to you the different main fears that employees face and how these can affect their work. I will group these fears in 6 different topics, and then I will dive deeper into 2 of them. So the first set of fears are the emotional fears. For example, fear of loneliness, worrying about not being able to rebuild a social or romantic life. Fear of failure, feeling of not having succeeded at maintaining a long-lasting and loving relationship. Fear of the unknown, anxiety about what the future holds. Fear of losing love, the feeling of being abandoned and no longer loved. Fear of the emotional impact, anxiety linked to the pain, the anger, and the sadness that a separation brings. And then finally, the last emotional fear being fear of emptiness, concern that life will be different, unmanageable, unrecognizable. The second set of fears are the parenting-related fears, if you have children. So the fear of the impact that this will have on your children, concern that divorce will affect their well-being, their balance, their development. Parents often feel a lot of guilt towards their children, regardless of who initiated the separation. Fear of losing custody, anxiety about not being able to spend enough time with their children and raise them as you wish. Fear of not being a good parent, doubts about one's ability to raise children alone. And the last one, which is parenting related, is a fear of conflict, of course, stress linked to disagreements over custody or education of your children. The third set of fears are the financial fears. Fear of financial insecurity. One of the major fears for employees going through separation or divorce is, of course, losing financial stability. Fear of losing assets, concerns about the division of property and resources. Thirdly, fear of paying alimony, stress related to the financial obligations that will come after the procedure is over. Fear of not maintaining a lifestyle, anxiety about significant lifestyle changes for themselves and for their children. And lastly, in the financial fears, fear of career impact. Employees fear that the divorce might harm their professional progression, reputation. They worry that this will affect their performance, career progression, or even their position, which of course in turn impacts their financial situation. The fourth set of fears are the social fears. Fear of social judgment. Divorce can lead to a fear of being judged by their peers, their friends, their colleagues, their family. Employees may worry about being perceived as less competent than or committed than due to their personal separation situation. There is fear of losing relationships, the risk of losing friends or connections, or even the different upheaval linked to losing connections with your in-laws. Fear of stigmatization, the feeling of being labeled as divorced or separated. And then fear of abandonment, especially by one's community. The fifth set of fears are the practical fears, and there's plenty of those. Fear of legal proceedings, concern about the complexity of the administrative and the legal procedure. The fear of conflict with the ex-spouse, anxiety about contentious separation or prolonged disputes. Fear of housing issues, worrying about finding a new place to live, having to move and being able to afford it. fear of starting over, feeling overwhelmed by the need to rebuild a new life, an entire life. And then fear of losing a familiar lifestyle. Again, anxiety about what life might look like afterward. And then, last but not least, you have all the personal fears. The fear of not finding love again, worrying about never being able to rebuild a life, a romantic life. Fear of losing self-confidence. This is a huge one. Feelings of inadequacy or worthlessness. This is particularly common for women. Fear of not healing, anxiety about remaining stuck in pain. Fear of regrets, doubts about taking the right decision. And fear of losing the past relationship, worrying about losing one's own sense of identity and balance. So, these fears are not fleeting. They begin way before the separation and last throughout the whole divorce process, ranging from 1 to 3 years if it's non-conflictual, and far longer in conflictual cases. So, what is the impact of these fears on work? Well, first of all, decreased productivity. I think this was already mentioned by Sandrine and Mel previously, but we can't say it enough. Concerns linked to these fears can affect focus, decision-making, and motivation, leading to reduced productivity. And last but not least, of course, internal tensions and conflicts. Fears of loss of security or failure create internal tensions, whether with colleagues or superiors. For example, consider an employee who is in the midst of a divorce proceeding, who begins to show signs of distraction, unavailability, or avoidance, avoiding important conversations due to the fear of being judged or not just entirely being in it. This creates a negative dynamic within a team. I will now delve deeper into 2 of those set of fears and explain how they manifest in a professional environment. Let's start with the fear of losing financial security. This is obviously quite a big one. Separation often leads to significant financial adjustments with implications on one's lifestyle. There is a great deal of financial uncertainty associated with separation, such as a division of assets, alimony, legal fees, and other divorce-related expenses, relocation, renovations, etc. On top of that, there are the costs of paying for the housing alone on one's salary, maintaining a certain standard of living for their children, and managing unforeseen expenses. In summary, it is the fear of not being able to meet one's own needs and or those of their children. This insecurity can generate anxiety, preventing the employee from fully concentrating on their work and impacting their career. Employees may fear that their divorce will be perceived as a sign of weakness and instability. This can affect their ability to make important decisions, focus on large-scale projects, or take advantage of promotion opportunities. So fears related to divorce can also impair an employee's ability to make rational decisions or interact optimally with colleagues and superiors. Now, let me give you a second example on a different set of fears surrounding those linked to parenting and children. And this is quite a personal one to me. Divorce, especially in a professional culture where private life is often set aside, can lead to fears of stigmatization, as I've said before. Employees may fear being perceived as less competent, less committed because of their personal issues. So imagine an employee who, after a difficult separation, avoids participating in group meetings or taking on new responsibilities. They might feel that their colleagues can no longer view them in the same way, which affects their morale and engagement at work. This is especially unfortunate because during such times, the professional bubble often becomes the only place where they feel safe. During my own divorce, I had to adjust my work hours because I had 2 very young children. So I had to work fewer hours and my workday early, and I also sometimes had to take care of my children on Wednesday afternoons. Logistically, I had to rearrange my whole life, on top of already feeling the guilt of what my kids were going through. I was already stressed and concerned about the results, what I was giving at work, and obviously my career opportunities. So all of that together just added to more stress. At a time when I actually desperately needed stability, I feared judgment from my colleagues, my peers. While my employer actually gave me space, the lack of structured support meant that my work suffered, deadlines were missed, and my motivation plummeted. Support from the beginning, as proposed by the Alliance, could have made a big difference for me and for my employer. So how do these fears affect your team's dynamics? How can you help your employees overcome these obstacles so they can continue to excel in their work? The goal is to offer practical solutions for managers and HR professionals to support employees going through separation or divorce and minimize the impact of these fears on their performance. Employee assistance programs, EAPs, exist. They're actually, in fact, a legal obligation, for example, in my home country in Belgium. But this helpline to access psychologists is only a small part of the appropriate response. Why? Because there are really several elements that are needed that actually are necessary. The first one is that the support is both pragmatic and emotional. So this can include coaching sessions, mediation, tailored support services to help your employees better manage their emotions and focus their work. Training in the right directions, basically with the right actions and words. It's essential for managers, HR managers, but also department managers, to be trained in appropriate actions and words, such as emotional first aid techniques. They must know how to address the topic of divorce or separation with tact and compassion while maintaining a professional framework. Strategic actions align with company culture. So these companies can also implement strategic actions that integrate into the corporate culture, basically, such as wellness programs, flexible work time solutions, or initiatives to support employees during these times of crisis. Some companies actually have introduced such programs, these employee support programs, and such as stress management seminars, in partnerships with divorce coaches. These initiatives have shown positive results in various countries in reducing stress while maintaining productivity. So fears related to divorce are not limited to the personal sphere. They have a direct impact on the professional arena and obviously on the employee's performance, so by extension on the company as a whole. Ignoring these fears risks undermining the emotional balance of your teams, compromising their productivity, and jeopardizing organizational cohesion. On the other hand, by understanding these challenges and addressing them proactively, you have the opportunity to transform a personal ordeal into a chance to strengthen resilience and solidarity within your company. Targeted and compassionate support makes all the difference. This is where basically the European Divorce Alliance can help you. With our expertise, we will help you implement concrete and tailored solutions to support your employees in difficulty. Together, let's turn this transition into a lever for well-being and sustainable performance. Contact us and we'll discover how the Alliance can be a true partner in this human and strategic endeavor. Thanks for listening.